Do you want to know what it is? The Matrix is everywhere. It is all around us. Even now, in this very room. You can see it when you look out your window or when you turn on your television.
And as you can see, there are lots and lots of dinosaurs.
Yeah, so basically, Studio Wildcard and the Matrix series had a baby and they named it Genesis Part 1. That's right, we're in a simulation to test our survivalness stuffs. The premise here is that there are 5 biomes: the ocean, the bog, the volcano, the lunar biome, and of course the snowy mountain. I won't need any summoning tributes for this one. I'll just need to complete a bunch of missions and then beat the crap out of this AI at the very end that resembles an abusive father. Yeah, you thought that AI art with the weird anime pictures was bad. Wait till you see this guy. And of course, as always, as the title suggests, I have 100 days or less to beat this. So, let's get into it. Before I embarked on my first day, I decided to make a character that would invigorate fear in my foes. I had to show them that my guy would never skip leg day. The game said that the bog biome apparently was the easiest to start in, so I chose that one. And as per usual in any playthrough ever, I began crafting and collecting the necessary beginning game items. Also, Ark, you're a liar! There's no way the bog is the easy biome. There's like another thing that wants to kill me every 15 feet. I managed to avoid death, yes, and tame 2 Moschops, but that didn't make this place any less scary, so I decided to go somewhere else to look for a base location. I opted for the ocean because of the aesthetic.
Oh my god.
I also didn't think it would spawn me underwater, which I turned out to be right. It spawned me on this nice little island with nothing dangerous, so I immediately began setting up my foundation. I also quickly realized that there wasn't a single stone on top of the little island where I was, so I would have to go back to the bog and get some, and I died. When I returned to the place of death, by the grace of God, I managed to rescue my Moschops. He was nearly dead, and I made a run for it. I was definitely glad I had chosen the ocean. This sucks. On day 2, I expanded my foundation a lot. I didn't exactly know what I was going for in terms of what I wanted my base to look like. I just knew I wanted it to be bigger. Later that day, I returned to the bog, and I'm not gonna lie, I really don't know why, but I did end up finding this mission where you play basketball using a dodo. Name something better. I will wait. I will wait right here. I ended up running this mission several times, and not because I wanted the loot, but because I thought it was genuinely fun. But eventually I got bored of dunking poultry and decided to go home and call it a day. Day 3, I put some more work into my base before heading back to the bog. I would need a tame that was better than the Moschops if I wanted to get anything done, and preferably I'd want something that could move fast in water so I could start doing ocean missions. Towards the evening of that day, I found this level 90 Sarco and knocked it out, began to tame it. Also, whose idea was it to put in these insect swarms? They literally serve no purpose other than to annoy the absolute crap out of the player. Day 4, my Sarco finished taming and I finally felt safe enough to explore more of the bog. I came across this racing mission which involved using a Bloodstalker, which is like the unique spider creature they have on this map, and you swing through the branches, and it was really fun. And I made a note to come back later after running it on all 3 difficulties. After that, I went to go find a mission on the tracker called the Bog Beatdown. It sounded interesting, and I had no idea what I was in for. As scary as it was, the loot was actually amazing, and I figured I'd be back later to farm some more. The original plan on day 5 was to run the Bog Beatdown multiple times so I could get a bunch of cool stuff, but it liked crashing my game. A lot. Thanks, Wildcard. After having several crashes and one extremely emotional breakdown where I questioned the very fibers of my existence, I decided to give up and go home. Later on, I discovered a mission very close to my house where I raced on a Manta. Yeah, that's about it. Day 6, I went back to the bog and found another racing mission, this time on a Caprisuchus, which was also kind of uneventful like the last one. It was still kind of fun though. After a hiatus of approximately 1 hour, I decided to return to the Bog Beatdown, and it actually let me run it several times on Gamma. Before it started to crash my game again on day 7, of course. gosh, someone please kill me. Once again, I gave up and returned to the ocean biome where I ran the manta race on alpha difficulty a couple of times before spending the rest of my day working on my base. Day 8, I wandered the bog looking for more things to tame. Having a Sarco was cool, yes, but having even more dinos at my disposal would be even cooler. It didn't take me too long to find this max level raptor, and that was a no-brainer. Towards the end of the day, I found this level 145 baryonyx and had a trap all ready to go for him. For whatever reason though, this absolute ding-dong wasn't getting into the trap like he was supposed to, so I ended up baiting him in with my Sarco. And well, it cost me a Sarco. But I did manage to knock the berry out, which is pretty cool. It's like what Thanos said, a soul for a soul.
What did it cost?
My crocodile.
On day 9, my baryonyx finished taming and I named her Swole. With the loss of my Sarco still looming over my head, I went looking for another tame and ended up finding a high-level breeding partner for my baryonyx. All it took was a simple trap and some drugs to convince him to be my slave. After I got home, I scrapped together everything I needed to make a saddle and went out on a leveling run for the both of them. We're on day 10 now, but you're still seeing recorded footage of day 9 because day 10's recording corrupted because of a power outage, but that's alright because all I did was organize my stuff and go on a manta race. Day 11, I paid my very first visit to the snow biome and I brought with me plenty of trinks. I really needed something to help me farm metal and I decided that this level 100 Anki would do nicely. I continued exploring the biome for a little longer until I found this frozen lake where I saw this high-level beaver. It was too good to pass up, so I tamed it. Also really quick, if any of you were wondering how I got these cryopods, HLNA has a little store where you can buy resources, and yeah, that's where I got it. Anyways, as evening fell, I decided to do this fishing mission that was right next to me on the frozen lake, and it was really boring. So obviously I had to keep fishing the next day. To be honest though, the loot wasn't very good, so I left after trying alpha a couple of times. It just wasn't worth it to me. Even though most of the day was spent fishing, I did end up knocking out this Dodic, which would be a huge help considering I had no access to stone on my little island. The Dodic finished taming on day 13 and I began to make my way towards the mountain at the very center of the biome. I probably spent half the day trying to figure out how to get up there until I actually found this path that quite literally went straight to the top. I felt pretty stupid. At the top of the mountain, I discovered this saber-tooth race, and I ran it on all 3 difficulties before realizing the cold had almost killed me, so I had to go home. Yeah, that's definitely safe. Now that I had the appropriate dinos, I went on a metal and stone run in the snow biome. Next up, I wanted a chemistry bench, but I had nowhere near the amount of materials I would need to make it, so I went out and harvested a bunch of organic polymer so I could, well, get closer anyway. Day 15, I still needed more electronics to craft the chemistry bench, so I went down into the deep sea to get some silica pearls. And boy, that was not fun. While I was down there, I found this high-level megalodon and decided to tame it. I wanted to fight Motor later, and I would need an army, so might as well start now. At the end of the day, I kept farming a racing mission so I could get more hexagons. Now that I had a megalodon, I could get around the ocean a lot faster, so the early morning of day 16, I farmed a couple more races before heading back to my base and scrambling together everything I needed to make an ocean platform. I needed to be able to have one of these so I could access all of my baby sharks once I started raising an army.
Nice.
I did realize one huge problem though, and that was I had to teleport back to the top of my island every time I came down to the ocean platform. And there was no way I was going to do that for the rest of this playthrough, so I decided I would build a ladder that would give me access to both whenever I pleased. So the entirety of day 17 was dedicated to building said ladder. And I don't know, something about like the unevenness, unkemptness of the whole thing gave it sort of this rustic charm. I really liked it. Day 18 in the morning, I cleaned up the area around the top of my ladder, giving it this nice little deck patio thing. I'm not sure, but it looked nice. I still needed a male breeding partner for my current megalodon so I could start my army, but unfortunately I couldn't find anything when I went out looking that afternoon, so I figured I'd just come back later. Day 19, I decided to pay another visit to the snow biome. This time I was running Fjord built tough on Gamma, basically the snowy version of the bog beatdown. This one crashed my game too, so it's probably just an issue with the gauntlets rather than just the one specific mission. Wonder if it has anything to do with the fact that I cook bacon on my PC while I play Ark. Nah, that can't be it. I did end up eventually beating the Fjord Tough Gamma, which was a lot of fun, and when I returned home later, I not only tamed a high-level Megalodon, but also a decent-level Basilosaurus as well. Day 20, I built up this large wooden platform that I planned to use as sort of a hatching station down the road. After that, I took out my new Megalodon to get him some levels, and while I was out, I found another high-level Basilosaurus, and of course, as always, I couldn't resist. I saw raptor claws for the very first time on day 21. Don't make fun of me, I don't really get myself involved in the events. I quickly got to breeding my sharks, and while I waited for the first shark baby to raise, I went out on a Basilosaurus to get it some levels. And I went out on my other Basilosaurus to get it some levels. Later that day, I noticed another issue about my base that was kind of ironic considering I lived at the ocean. I had no water up there, so a lot of the afternoon was spent building an irrigation pipe right up to the base. The timing literally couldn't have been better because at the moment I had more stone than I knew what to do with. Oh yeah, and I tamed this bird. It was cute. I put the finishing touches onto my irrigation system on day 22. It ain't much, but it's honest work. After that, I took one of my Basilosaurus out to do some hunting missions. There were two that I did. One involved hunting down a brute giant squid and the other a brute mosasaurus. I ran them each on Gamma, which was fun because I got to do extra damage, so neither of them took me too long to complete. And as always, the loot wasn't too terrible, but I didn't get exactly what I was looking for yet. Day 23, I decided to run the squid hunt mission again, this time on beta. For this one, I brought both of my basilos and a shark, but unfortunately the basilo I wasn't riding and the shark both died. I did end up completing the mission though, but now I would have to go find another female Basilosaurus, which I actually did find that same afternoon. After I came home with my new tamed whale, I found that one of my baby sharks had died. I needed to distract myself from the fact that I had just indirectly murdered a child, so I went on another mission called Hide and Seek. The premise of this mission was just to find these little hidden areas around certain little areas. Yeah, that's about it. Day 24, I decided to move past all my losses and began breeding all of my sea creatures. This was also around the time where I started to realize that I was making more narcotics in this playthrough than I had in any other ARK playthrough I had ever done. Is this what PvP feels like? Later on, I ran the hide and seek mission again, this time on beta because Gamma from the day previous was a piece of cake. And OG Willikers, bro, the loot. The loot. I got an Ascendant rifle out of that. It was safe to say that I would definitely be running this mission over and over. Day 25, I started to set my eyes on an industrial cooker, but I needed way more metal and polymer to make one. So of course I headed back to the Arctic biome with my Anki and grabbed as much metal and obsidian as I could carry. When I got back, I farmed some more juicy, delicious loot by completing Hide and Seek Alpha. The rest of the day was spent harvesting more wood with my beaver and draining blood so I could tame a certain creature later. If you know, you know, and if you don't, well, you're gonna find out soon. Ish. Later. I forgot to start recording the morning of day 26, but that's alright because all I really did was craft a bunch of gunpowder and a bunch of bullets that I wasn't going to use until much later. While I was waiting for stuff to craft though, I did a bit of light reading and discovered that there was a creature that was even better at metal harvesting than an Anki. A magmasaur. Apparently there was this cave in the volcano biome where I could go to steal one of their eggs. And that's about all the research I did, but more on that later. And with a little bit of preparation, the next day was gonna be the day I would attempt to get an egg. You heard that right. I thought it was a good idea to do it literally the next day. Had was a high-level baryonyx and a few grapples. What could go wrong? A lot. A lot could have gone wrong. Notice how I said could have, because it didn't. As soon as I got deep into that cave, I realized that I had made a huge mistake, but it was too late to back out and I kept moving forward. It wasn't long before I found a little patch of magmasaur nests and I fell. As you can see, somehow I managed to tank the lava damage on my baryonyx and managed to nab one of the eggs. And yes, of course, I didn't even bother to kill the other magmasaurs in the area, so they all turned on me, obviously, when I grabbed the egg. I managed to kill one or two, but then I realized it was a losing battle with their fire damage and I booked it. Even with the speed of my baryonyx, there should have been no way I could have escaped those spider webs. I should have been mauled to pieces by all the arachnids and bugs in that cave. But somehow, by the grace of God, I made it out of that cave, and I will forever remember it as probably the single-handedly most stupid endeavor I've ever done in ARK.
was seriously up. We almost died.
So you agree?
Yes, this was insane. That was pure luck. I was not in control of that situation at all.
Also, apparently I managed to grab 2, but I never hatched the second egg because it was just a level 25. And thus, my grind for air conditioners began. On the morning of day 28, one of my sharks got killed by a giant squid while I was out on a silica pearl run. It didn't take me too long to find another shark of the same gender with an even better level later, so all's well that ends well. I had my fill of chaos and wanted to take it easy, so the rest of the day was spent getting electricity to my hatchery platform and setting up the air conditioners. As it turns out, 12 is enough to start hatching a magmasaur egg. On the morning of day 29, I hatched both of my baryonyx eggs. Even though I had quite literally been through hell and back with my baryonyx, I wanted a stronger tame. I paid the volcano biome another visit and eventually found this level 135 Allosaurus. After it tamed, I decided I would do this Gallimimus race just because it was right there and why not, but I had accidentally left my baryonyx set to follow and I lost him. Without my baryonyx, I was stuck on foot because I had no Allosaurus saddle, so I decided to teleport home just to drop him off, and when I got home, I realized that my baryonyx babies were also gone. Man, I can never win. The waning hours of the day were spent unsuccessfully looking for my baryonyx in the volcano biome. Day 30, I decided I would try the Gallimimus race once more to see if I could spot my berry somewhere along the way. This plan worked like a charm because I found him almost immediately.
Okay.
Now that I had my baryonyx back, I decided I would do some more missions. I started running this one weird treasure hunt mission, which basically had me follow a bunch of points and kill everything in my path until I reached this cave where I'd kill a triceratops, steal his bones, and then run back to another point that it gave me, I guess. I don't know. As confusing as it sounds, it gave me high-quality megalodon saddles, so I ran it a couple more times to get a whole bunch before heading back home. When I returned home, I also ended up finding my 2 berry children, which were fully grown, unfortunately, but now I had backups at least. By this point, my magmasaur was almost done hatching, so I decided to do a bit of research. Apparently, there is this resource called ambergris in the lunar biome that I would need in order to raise my magmasaur once it hatched. So, of course, I paid my first ever visit to the lunar biome and collected more than I probably needed before heading back home. The lunar biome was scary and I didn't want to deal with it yet. Day 31, my magmasaur finally finished hatching. Most of the day was spent tending to its needs as well as the needs of my little baby sharks. Later on, I discovered a new hunting mission in the ocean. This time I was hunting a plesiosaur. Pliosaur? The long neck dudes. Day 32, I continued to tend to them darn kids. I also realized I would need way more space to raise the ones in the water, so I built a second ocean platform. Later that afternoon, I crafted a bunch of trank darts. I was excited to use them with my ascendant long neck. At the end of the day, I went looking for a breeding partner for my Allosaurus in the volcano biome, but found nothing. I honestly can't tell you what was going through my head on day 33. I was just kind of putting these foundations down on my ocean platforms. That was about it. No thoughts, head empty, smooth brain. The last thing I did that day was rerun the plesiosaur hunting mission for the hexagons. Yeah, at this point in the editing, I'm pretty sure I was just bored on day 34. A lot of this day was just wasted working on my ocean platform. The only other thing I really did that day besides caring for my babies was that I went on another wood run with my beaver. On day 35, I ran the treasure hunt mission again so I could get more megalodon saddles before heading back home to keep raising my babies. God forbid I ever let these children grow up on the internet. I know what they would become. While I waited for my children to grow, I decided to start giving my base a final form. Finally, it was becoming something more than just a wooden thatch platform on this soggy rock. Day 36, the moment had finally come. I could ride my magmasaur. I didn't waste a single second saddling him up and heading over to the volcano biome so I could farm some metal, and oh sweet holy mega baloney goodness, that thing could farm. While I waited for my new massive batch of metal to smelt, I just continued working on my base. I tried to go for something different on day 37 since I spent the whole day building up my base, but unfortunately I just used a bunch of stone again. It didn't look too bad, but you know. The footage for day 38 once again corrupted because of another power outage, which is great.
Duck this one!
There is a silver lining to this though, and that's the fact that I spent the entire day draining my own blood. because I wanted a Bloodstalker. I swear, bro, this better be worth it. Day 39, I felt like I had enough blood bags, so I set off to the bog to find one. And before too long, I did end up finding this level 100. The trick was getting close enough so that it could see me and grab me, but apparently there was another one right next to it and it grabbed me instead. I killed it, and then got grabbed by the right one, and then tamed him. Because I'm cool. Now that I finally had something that could give me great mobility, I went to the lunar biome to look for a Tech Rex. I almost died from overheating though, so I had to head back home to craft an industrial cooker so I could finally make myself some healing brews. Now that I had healing brews, on day 40 I went back to the lunar biome so I could continue my hunt for a good Tech Rex. I eventually found this level 174 and made quick work with it with my trank darts. While it tamed up, I decided I would go looking to see if I could find it a mate and found one of the opposite gender that was the exact same level. I cleared the area of any creatures that might foil my plans before knocking that one out too. Once they were both tamed, I paid a visit to the volcano biome to level them up a bit before breeding them later. Day 41, I ran the treasure hunt mission to get my new Rex some more levels before heading back to the ocean biome to continue running hide and seek. The reason I kept running the latter of these two was because it kept giving me Ascendant Rex saddles, and it was a no-brainer to me to keep farming them. Day 42, I ran treasure hunt again, this time to level up my other Rex. At the end of it all, I was satisfied with the level they were both at and decided that the time was ripe for breeding.
Here we go. This is gonna be cool.
While my first egg began to hatch, I realized that my sea creatures still needed to be leveled up too, so a lot of the rest of the day was spent doing that. Of course I was going to over-prepare. I had never fought Motor before and wanted to make sure I was going to win. Because I'm a gamer. That's what we do. As I began to raise my first baby Rexes on day 43, I quickly realized that I had nowhere near enough room on my little island to be able to raise a whole army. Because of this, I made fast tracks to the bog biome once more so I could scout out a good location to build a large pen, and that's what I spent the rest of the day doing. Day 44, I was basically singing the same song. I continued working on my Rex pen. I wanted it to be very large. While I was doing this, I made sure to occasionally check back home to make sure my babies were growing up nicely. I was only gonna settle for full imprints for the boss fight, you know how it goes. Towards the end of the day, I decided I wanted to put my huge collection of narcotic to good use and made myself a whole bunch of heals. Day 45 was almost exactly the same actually, except my first Rex finished growing, so that was pretty cool. Let's see, I worked on my pen, raised more children, and oh yeah, every time something would attack my underwater creatures, they would just book it as far as they could from the base. So I would have to swim way out to whistle them back in. The only way I could prevent this was keeping them on passive, but then they'd like die and stuff. Chads like myself have it so tough, man. Day 46, I finally finished my Rex pen. While I waited for a bunch of my little Rex babies to continue growing up, I mass crafted a bunch of bullets. Better to be safe than sorry. I had no idea what the Master Controller fight was gonna be like. Day 47, I did a raptor hunting mission so I could level up one of my new fully grown Rexes. Then later, I kinda made an oopsie daisy and overestimated the combat potential of my Bloodstalker. Later in the day though, the game actually ended up crashing, and so once I rebooted it, guess who was back? Bro was really taking notes from Jesus of Nazareth. Day 48, I was still leveling up my Rexes, but decided to shake things up a bit and go for some volcano hunting missions this time. After that, I returned to the bog again to do another hunting mission. This time, it was a giant Bloodstalker. I did experience a brief scare for a second because I was almost pulled off my mount, but I was able to stay on for reasons unknown to me. Ark, I love you. But I also hate you. Day 49, I tried out a new mission called Searching the Frozone. It was basically the Arctic version of hide and seek. After spending a while on that, I decided to go to the lunar biome so I could try some of the missions there and ended up doing the technological terrors. Despite the fact I had literal nameless and reapers in my face trying to bite it off, it was actually pretty fun. The low gravity allowed me to jump to high platforms that I could just shoot down on them from. Not only that, but the loot made it worth it. Day 50 was relatively boring. All I did for the entire day was run bog hunting mission after bog hunting mission so I could level up my Rexes. I know the baby killing method is a lot more efficient in terms of leveling up, but I didn't feel like turning it off with PvE because I didn't want to deal with cryosickness. On day 51, I found this Doedic race in the volcano biome that was so fun I had to run it on all 3 difficulties. And of course, since I was in the area, I would have to use it to level up another one of my Rexes before heading home and waiting for another egg to hatch. On day 52, I was tired of doing only the volcano and bog hunting missions, so I went over to the Arctic biome to try some of those. It wasn't very fun, but I still needed the missions to be able to fight the Master Controller at the end, so it was just as well. I also got into a tussle with this rock elemental at one point, and I was never in any danger, but it took frickin' forever to kill. I only needed a couple more pieces of tech armor so I could get the full set, so on day 53 I headed to the lunar biome to farm some of the missions that would give me said pieces. And this time, I didn't want just the one set, I wanted multiple sets, because I wanted backups, because backups are cool and mean less death. Okay, well, I'm not gonna guarantee that, but you know what I mean. Day 54, I continued to raise my kids before looking up where I needed to go to get tech pants, the last piece of tech gear I needed to complete the set. It was another gauntlet called the Magma Medley Melee, but when I attempted to start it, it crashed my game once again. I did eventually complete it after I logged back into the game, but once I got home I realized I couldn't actually wear any of the tech stuff because I didn't have the engrams, because I made a new character. So I just coded myself the tech engrams, and listen, I know it's cheating, okay? But what's the point of doing all these missions to get tech armor if I can't even use it? Day 55, I made a bunch of paint so I could fight in style during the final boss fight with my channel colors. After wasting nearly the entire morning doing that, I went out and completed another mission called Out of the Frying Pan and Into the Fire because it gave me high quality fabricated shotguns. Day 56, I painted my guns in the Choofy aesthetic. I know, they must have been so proud. After that, I went back to the volcano biome so I could level up another one of my Rexes. This time I was doing another hunting mission where I hunted a Rex. When I returned home later that evening, I found that all of my Rex eggs had hatched, so now I was swimming in hatchlings. I had a lot of catch-up nanny work to do. Day 57 started off with me tormenting the local wildlife. I don't know why, but it was kind of fun reeling them in. It felt more like building things rather than completing missions on this day, so I decided to start building a bunch of platform slash stair slash floor thing on top of my island. I didn't know exactly what I was doing, I just kind of wanted to make it more populated, and it didn't look too bad. Again, it was like this rustic look. I was really digging it. Day 58, this happened. I worked on the railing on my ceiling a little bit before heading out on my magma sword to get a lot more metal. I had been drained because of my bullet production, so I needed way more to make way more bullets. Quick maths. Day 59, I continued to raise my Rex children, but all I did besides that day was farm hide and seek over and over again because I was running way behind on Rex saddles.
Hey Dad, are you winning?
No.
Day 60, I continued to farm hide and seek until I had more Rex saddles than I thought I probably needed. Most of the rest of the day was spent raising up sharks and leveling up more Rexes. I did have to start organizing my Rexes at one point. The army was just getting so big that my small brain couldn't really handle it, so I needed them to be organized. Day 61, I went out on a meat run and then delivered everything I had collected to my boys. They were hungry. And then remember what I said about having too many Rex saddles? Well, screw that, I'm running hide and seek again, and there's nothing you can do about it. There was also this reoccurring problem that was just a minor annoyance on my island where there would be birds everywhere. Normally I'd just slay the beasts, but now I just had a different approach. I was going to tame each and every one of them. Day 62, I tamed a huge burb, because why not? After that, for a lot of the day, it was just me working on building these hillbilly platforms and stairways on the grassy parts of my island. In my honest opinion, for whatever reason, it made everything feel more natural, so I guess there's that. I also worked in putting up the glass walls in my aviary. That's what this room was going to be called now. It was just going to house a large random army of Archaeopteryx, and you can't change my mind, because why not? There isn't much to say for day 63, I just leveled up a bunch of my Rexes using the treasure hunt mission before going back and taming even more birds. Day 64 was also busy yet uneventful. The bulk of it was spent leveling up both Rexes and Megalodons, while the other portion of the day was spent raising both Rexes and Megalodons. On day 65, I finally got tired of all the monotony and started building a stone tower in the middle of my little Rex pen. It wouldn't be completely without its use. I would use it as sort of a watchtower to make sure nothing was spawning inside my pen, but just to be sure, I put down a bunch of pillars to ensure that nothing would spawn. But now that I look at it, I'm pretty sure it's foundations that do that, but I'm not sure. I did all this as raising, as per usual, before heading home and taming another bird. Day 66, I had to organize my Rexes some more because the big pack of Rexes that had all hatched at the same time were finally full grown. I worked on my tower a little bit more before going back home to organize my sharks. At the end of the day, I started breeding my birds, and I'm not sure why I did this, but it was funny. That's just rule number one of having a large, unnecessary, stupid bird army. Make it as big as you possibly can. Day 67, I took a look at my island and just felt that it needed more stuff on it to look better. So I figured, why not build something that was aesthetically pleasing and useful? So I started building a stable so I could organize all the animals that dwelt on my island. I decided to be even more productive and finished the roof to my aviary while I was in the mood for building. So now my little useless army had a roof over their heads. Day 68 started with a thatch run on my moss shops. I finally ran out after all that construction I had been doing. After that, it was same old, same old. I continued to work on my stable for most of the day, but later took a break and went out to level up one of my sharks. Most importantly, though, I kept taming birds.
Yeah, boy.
Day 69.
Nice.
My ocean army wasn't nearly as big as I wanted it to be because I kept putting more time into raising my Rexes rather than raising my sharks. Later that day, I finally finished my stable and moved all my animals inside, and it actually looked really good. At this point, I was kinda just killing time while I waited for babies to grow. I only had one more mission to complete for the final boss, and that was gonna be the motor one for, I don't know, coolness? But then I had a glorious idea and began laying the foundation to an outhouse that would have the most spectacular view in all of Genesis. I was definitely in it for the 5-star grand luxury pooping experience here. Day 70, I continued to work on my beauty pooper while I waited for my baby sharks to grow. Although, because I was using all these greenhouse walls and ceilings, I would need way more crystal. Because of that, I took my magmasaur back to the volcano biome to go on a very unnecessarily large crystal run. I just got more than I probably would ever need for the rest of this run. When I got back, I just continued building. On day 71, I crafted and placed the grand pooping toilet in my grand ultra pooper house thingy. At this point, my entire Rex army had been fully grown, so now I just needed to level them up, so the entire rest of the day was spent running the treasure hunt missions and leveling them up in the volcano biome. All of day 72 was dedicated towards leveling up my Rexes and sharks. Although finally I did stop being lazy and recovered my baby baryonyxes that I never ever used and put them in my stable, where I would never ever use them. Day 73, I was seriously bored while raising my sharks, so I just spammed the manta race a whole bunch of times to get a bunch of hexagons. More hexagons meant more element for the final fight. I wouldn't actually be able to use the element, but I didn't know that at the time, so shut up. I was raising my sharks in the early hours of day 74 before finally heading up top to catch the sunrise on my glorious pooper throne. My pooper throne of splendor. Then, of course, it was just back to leveling Rexes and doing the treasure hunt missions for more Megalodon saddles. Day 75, I did a bit more prep work for the boss fights besides just raising. Using my hexagons, I bought a whole bunch of cactus sap so I could make some cactus broth. It seemed that there would be a lot of creatures and stuff in the boss fight that could attack me, so if I could do anything to deter that, I would. Then, out of pure anxiety, I spent most of the rest of the day crafting more ammo. Oh yeah, and as always, I tamed more birds. Day 76, I wanted to go tame a ferox just because it was on my bucket list. I made my way over to the little cave where they usually spawn and found a really high level. Taming these guys is a little bit of a pain. As long as you have your grappling hooks, you should have no worries. You just have to feed them element and then get the heck out of range before they transform into these hulking dudes. And I'm just gonna say, even with the taming speed turned up, this took forever.
Now that it's tamed, oh, I hope it stays that cute.
I took him home and messed around on him for a little bit, before getting bored and just going back to raising sharks. Day 77, my Megalodon army was ready, and it's pretty safe to say that he stood no chance. I headed back up to my base to say my final goodbyes to all of my tames. I was now officially ready to fight the Master Controller. And as I watched the sun set on my base for one last time, I couldn't help but feel incredibly nervous. Was everything I had worked on enough?
Preparing to teleport. Here's our final test. Everything we do is
Welcome to the final test and your final moments of life. Struggle if you wish, but your failure is inevitable.
That's enough keys. I'll start hacking us to teleport. Enough keys. I'll start hacking us to teleport.
I'd rather destroy the entire simulation than let you.
That's enough keys. I'll start hacking us to teleport. You don't, mate.
survivor. Don't panic. All Lectione's got ya. 1 sec. So, good news! We passed the Genesis simulation. Welcome to the real world. The other survivors are still trapped in the simulation, but we're free. Bugger! The corruption's here too. Apparently it followed us from the simulation. But that's impossible. We might be the only ones awake. So let's get geared up and deal with the corruption before it spreads. It says here, tech suit for emergency use only. This definitely qualifies. Now that you aren't so squishy, we should figure out which part of the colony ship we're in. If we can just... Oh, that's not good at all!